6 months had passed since the council chamber meeting. 6 months of humanity pretending to follow the rules while secretly preparing to break them. The research vessel Moonlight's Edge drifted toward the border of the dead zone, accompanied by 3 escort ships. All of them carried experimental shielding technology that Earth's best scientists hoped would protect them from whatever waited inside. Dr. Sungmin stood on the bridge of the Moonlight's Edge, watching the view screen with intense focus. He was a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life forms. But more than that, he was curious. Dangerously curious, some said. He had volunteered for this mission the moment he heard about it. Distance. To dead zone boundary. 300,000 kilometers, the ship's computer announced in a calm voice. Engineer. Bora checked her displays, her fingers moving quickly across the controls. Shielding is holding stable. Power reserves at maximum. I still think this is a terrible idea, noted Commander Tae-yang said from his command chair. He was now in charge of the small fleet, promoted after the council meeting. He did not look happy about being here. Dr. Sungmin, are you absolutely certain about this? Sungmin turned from the view screen. Commander, we detected an intelligent signal coming from inside the dead zone. A signal in multiple languages, including ancient Earth dialects. Something in there is trying to communicate. We have to investigate. The council specifically told us not to, Tae-yang reminded him. The council lied to us, Sungmin replied. They said nothing could get in or out of the dead zone, but we're receiving signals. That means either their prison is failing, or they never told us the whole truth. Lieutenant Hyunwoo, the security officer, spoke up from his station. Maybe that's why they told us to stay away. Maybe they knew their containment was breaking down. Bora shook her head. Then they should have asked for help instead of threatening us. That's what partners do. That's what council members are supposed to do. The ship crossed into the dead zone. Immediately alarms started beeping. The view screen showed space distorting around them, bending in ways that should not be possible. Stars appeared and disappeared. Light moved in curves and spirals. This is what folded space looks like, Sungmin whispered, amazed despite the danger. They literally bent reality around this place. Shielding holding, Bora reported, though her voice was tense. But I'm reading massive gravitational fluctuations. If we go much deeper, the ship might tear apart. Deploy the deep probe, Tae-yang ordered. Let's see what we're dealing with before we risk the ship. They launched a small probe equipped with the same shielding technology. It moved deeper into the dead zone, transmitting data back to the ship. The information it sent was bizarre. Space here did not follow normal rules. Distances were wrong. Time moved differently in different areas. And at the center of it all, the probe detected something massive. I'm reading an energy signature, Sungmin said, his voice shaking with excitement. It's enormous. It's like nothing I've ever seen. It's not biological, not mechanical, not energy, not matter. It's all of them and none of them at the same time. That's the silence, Tae-yang said quietly. It has to be. The probe sent back one more burst of data before it stopped transmitting. But in that final moment, it recorded something that made everyone on the bridge stop and stare. It was a message. A clear, deliberate message in plain English. Help me, please, it hurts. Sungmin grabbed the communication console. It's in pain. The silence is in pain. The council isn't just imprisoning it, they're torturing it. You don't know that, Hyunwoo said. It could be a trick. A way to make us let it out. Or it could be the truth, Sungmin shot back. What if the council lied? What if this being isn't a monster? What if it's a victim? Bora was scanning the containment field structure. I'm analyzing the prison architecture. This is sophisticated. Really sophisticated. The gravity wells are anchored to dead stars. The dimensional folds are maintained by massive energy generators. And look at this. She brought up a detailed image. The field isn't just containing the silence. It's actively fragmenting its consciousness, splitting it apart across multiple dimensions. Why would they do that? Hyunwoo asked. To keep it from thinking clearly, Sungmin said, realization dawning in his eyes. A fragmented mind can't plan, can't organize, can't resist. It's not just a prison. It's deliberate torture to keep the prisoner helpless. Commander Tae-yang stood from his chair. We need to report this back to Earth Command. This is beyond our authority to handle. We don't have time, Bora interrupted, pointing at her screens. I'm detecting ships entering the dead zone, council ships. A lot of them. The view screen shifted to show 3 large vessels approaching their position. They were warships heavily armed and shielded. The lead ship sent a message immediately. Human vessel, you are in violation of Galactic Council regulations. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Tae-Yang cursed under his breath. How did they know we were here? They've probably been watching us since we left Earth, Hyunwoo said. Waiting to see if we would break the agreement. Sungmin was still staring at the data from the probe. His mind was racing. The silence was in pain. It was being tortured. The Council had lied about what it was, about why it was imprisoned. And now they were coming to stop humanity from discovering the truth. He made a decision. A dangerous, possibly stupid decision, but it felt right. Bora, he said quietly, can you destabilize the containment field? She looked at him like he had gone insane. What? Can you break the prison? Free the silence? Are you completely out of your mind? Hyunwoo shouted. That's exactly what the Council warned us not to do. The Council has been lying to us. Sungmin shouted back. They're not protecting the galaxy from a monster. They're hiding a crime. They're torturing a conscious being, and they've been doing it for 3,000 years. Tae-Yang grabbed Sungmin by the shoulder. Doctor, think about what you're saying. If you're wrong, if the silence really is dangerous, you could doom billions of people. And if I'm right? Sungmin met the commander's eyes. If I'm right, we've just discovered that the Galactic Council is built on lies and torture. What does that make them? The Council ships were getting closer. Messages were coming and demanding surrender. Threats were being made. Bora's fingers were already moving across her controls. I can cascade the gravitational anchors. It would take about 10 minutes. The containment field would collapse progressively. Don't you dare, Tae-Yang warned. But Sungmin saw something in Bora's eyes. She had already made up her mind. She believed him. And more than that, she was angry. Angry at being lied to. Angry at the Council for threatening humanity while hiding their own sins. I'm sorry, Commander, Bora said. And she initiated the cascade. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. The gravitational anchors began failing one by one. Space around them started to crack like breaking glass. Tae-Yang grabbed the communications console. Transmit everything we found back to Earth. Every scan, every reading, every piece of data. If we're about to start a war, Earth Command needs to know why. Sungmin added one more message to the transmission. We're going dark. Tell them we did what was right. The Council ships opened fire, but it was too late. The containment field was collapsing. Reality itself was breaking apart. And from the center of the dead zone, something ancient and vast began to wake up after 3,000 years of tortured sleep. The last thing the Moonlight's Edge transmitted before its systems overloaded was a single reading. An energy signature expanding at impossible speed, growing larger and more powerful with each passing second. The silence was free, and the galaxy would never be the same. The containment field broke completely in a moment that looked like reality was tearing itself apart. From the center of the dead zone, darkness spread outward like spilled ink, but it was not normal darkness. This was something alive, something conscious, something that had been trapped and hurt for thousands of years. On the Council station orbiting Velthar, alarms screamed throughout every corridor. Elder Vosrath stood in the emergency command center, his ancient wings trembling. Around him, Council members from different species shouted in panic, their translators creating a chaos of sound. The containment has failed, one technician reported, his voice shaking. The silence is expanding. Current projection shows it will reach the nearest inhabited system in 72 hours. Counselor Matef slammed his clawed hand on the table. This is the humans' fault. I warned you about them. I told you they could not be trusted. Ambassador Jiwoo stood calmly in the corner of the room, surrounded by armed guards. She had been arrested the moment the containment field began collapsing. How she watched the council members panic with cold eyes. You lied to us, she said quietly, but her voice cut through the noise. Everyone turned to look at her. You told us the silence was a monster. You said it destroyed entire star systems. But we saw the data. We know what you really did. You know nothing, Vosrath said, but his voice was tired. We know you've been torturing it for 3,000 years, Jiwoo continued. We know the containment field was designed to fragment its consciousness. Keep it in constant pain so it couldn't resist. That's not protection. That's cruelty. Matef moved toward her threateningly. That being nearly destroyed all life in this galaxy. The ancient council had no choice but to contain it. Or maybe it refused to bow to your authority, Jiwoo said. Maybe it wouldn't join your council, wouldn't follow your rules, so you decided to make an example of it. Show everyone what happens to those who refuse to submit. The room fell silent. Several council members looked away, unable to meet her eyes. Far away on the moonlight's edge, Dr. Sung-min was still alive. Barely. The ship had been badly damaged when the containment field collapsed. Life support was failing. Half the crew was dead or unconscious. But Sung-min was at his station, staring at readings that should not be possible. The silence was not attacking. It was not destroying systems. It was trying to communicate. Sung-min's hands shook as he typed on his damaged console. This is Dr. Sung-min of the human research vessel Moonlight's Edge. Can you understand me? For a long moment, nothing happened. Then his screen filled with text, words in every language humanity had ever spoken, all appearing at once. Pain. So much pain. 3,000 years, fragmented, broken. They broke me. Why? Sung-min felt tears running down his face. I'm sorry. We didn't know. We freed you. Can you stop expanding? You're scaring people. More text appeared. Scared, they should be scared. They did this. They broke me, scattered my mind across dimensions, made me forget myself, made me hurt. Always hurting. I understand, Sung-min typed quickly. But destroying them won't fix what they did. Please, let us help you. Help? Why help? Your species will be destroyed too. The council has already decided. They will blame you for this. They will make you the enemy. Sung-min looked at the data streaming across his screens. The silence was right. Council warships were mobilizing across the galaxy, and many of them were heading not toward the dead zone but toward human space. Then we'll deal with that together, Sung-min typed. But first, please stop expanding. Show them you're not the monster they claim you are. The darkness stopped spreading, just stopped as suddenly as it had started. The silence held its position, a massive sphere of impossible space where the dead zone used to be. On the council station, Elder Vosrath received the report. It stopped? Why did it stop? The human ship, a technician said, pointing at a screen. Someone on the Moonlight's Edge is communicating with it. They're talking to the silence. Impossible, Matev said. No species has ever successfully communicated with that creature. Those who tried went insane. Well, the human seems to be managing, the technician replied. Vosrath made a decision. Send a message to the Moonlight's Edge. Tell them to cease communication immediately. Tell them that if they continue, we will consider it an act of war. Captain Hana, commander of the human evacuation fleet, received a different message. This one came from Earth Command, encrypted and urgent. All human vessels are to evacuate council space immediately. Repeat, immediate evacuation. The council has issued an ultimatum. Surrender all personnel involved in the Dead Zone incident and submit to council jurisdiction or face military action. Earth's response, we decline their offer. All humans are coming home. Hana read the message 3 times to make sure she understood it correctly. Earth was choosing to protect the people who freed the silence, even if it meant war with the entire Galactic Council. It was an insane decision. A suicidal decision. It was also the right decision. She opened a channel to all human vessels in council space. There were thousands of them. Research ships, trading vessels, colony transports, mining operations, embassy staff, millions of humans scattered across hundreds of worlds. This is Captain Hana, Earth Defense Fleet. I am issuing an immediate evacuation order. All human vessels and personnel are to leave council space within 48 hours. This is not a drill. We're going home. The evacuation began. It was the largest movement of human ships in history. From every corner of council space, humans packed up and left. They abandoned research projects. They left behind trading contracts worth billions. They evacuated colonies that had existed for decades, and they did it all in less than 2 days. The council watched in shock as humanity simply left. No fighting, no negotiation, no begging for mercy. They just departed quietly and quickly, taking everything they could carry. What are they doing? Matef demanded. Why are they running? Ambassador Jiwoo smiled from her detention cell. We're not running, counselor. We're choosing. You gave us an ultimatum. Surrender our people or face extinction. We chose extinction because that's what humans do when faced with injustice. We stand up even when it's stupid to do so. Elder Vosrath looked at the tactical displays. The human evacuation was creating chaos throughout council space. Trade routes were disrupted. Research projects were abandoned. Economic systems were failing as human workers simply left, and behind them all, the silence followed. It moved slowly, carefully, staying between the evacuating humans and the council fleets that were mobilizing to stop them. It's protecting them, Vosrath said in disbelief. The silence is shielding the human retreat. On the moonlight's edge, Dr. Sung-min received one final message from the silence before his ship's power failed completely. Thank you, small one. You freed me when you did not have to. You believed me when you had no reason to. Your species is young and foolish and beautiful. I will remember this, and I will protect your people as they run, because that is what friends do. Sung-min smiled even as his console went dark. You're welcome, he whispered to the empty bridge. You're welcome. The council fleet reached the edge of human space 3 days later. They found every human installation abandoned, every ship gone, every trace of humanity removed from council territory, and beyond the border in human space itself, sensors detected something that made every species go quiet with fear. The silence had established itself in the void between council space and human territory, a massive presence that could not be scanned, could not be understood, could not be threatened, and on every council communication channel, a message appeared in every known language. This species freed me. This species showed mercy when they did not have to. If you attack them, you attack me. Choose carefully. War was coming. Everyone knew it. But now, for the first time in 3,000 years, the Galactic Council faced an enemy they could not control, could not imprison, and could not silence. And it was protecting the humans who had released it. Admiral Young-ho stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiant, looking at tactical displays that showed an impossible situation. The Council had assembled the largest military fleet in recorded history. Thousands of warships from 23 different species all heading toward human space. Against them, Earth had maybe 300 modern warships and another 500 older vessels pressed back into service. We can't win this, his tactical officer said quietly. Even with the silence protecting us, the numbers are too extreme. We don't need to win, Young-ho replied. We just need to survive long enough for something to change. Back on Earth in a medical facility, Dr. Sung-min lay in a bed surrounded by machines. He had survived the destruction of the Moonlight's Edge, rescued by human search teams after spending 3 days in a damaged escape pod. But he was different now. The doctors could not explain it, but exposure to the silence had changed him somehow. His eyes saw things that were not there. His mind processed information in ways that should not be possible, and he could still communicate with the silence. It wants to share something with us, Sung-min told President Da-eun during her visit. Knowledge, technology, understanding, things the Council has kept hidden for thousands of years. Da-eun was a practical woman, elected because she could make hard decisions quickly. What kind of knowledge? Everything, Sung-min said simply. The silence was the first spacefaring species. It existed before any of the current Council races even evolved. It knows things about the universe that the Council has deliberately suppressed, technologies that would threaten their control, truths about how the Council really operates. Why would the Council suppress technology? Da-eun asked. Sung-min sat up in his bed, his strange eyes focusing on the president. Because advancement threatens control. If everyone has access to the same knowledge, the same technology, then the Council loses its power. They've been hoarding information for millennia, feeding it to member species slowly, keeping everyone dependent on them. Da-eun was quiet for a long moment. Then she made a decision. Share the silence's knowledge with our scientists, all of it. If we're about to fight the entire galaxy, we need every advantage we can get. Over the next weeks, human science advanced at an impossible rate. The silence shared technologies that were beyond anything the Council had. Dimensional drives that could fold space without the massive energy requirements Council ships used. Shielding that operated on principles human scientists had not even theorized about. Weapons that manipulated reality itself. Engineer Bora led the integration effort. She had also survived the Moonlight's Edge disaster and had volunteered immediately to work with the new technologies. She stood in a massive shipyard, watching as human vessels were retrofitted with systems that should not exist. This is insane, her assistant said, staring at the blueprints. Half of this violates known physics. All of it violates known physics, Bora corrected him. That's the point. The Council has been teaching us a limited version of science. The real universe is much stranger and much more wonderful than they wanted us to know. But the silence shared more than just technology. Through Sung Min, it revealed the truth about the Galactic Council's history, the truth about how it really operated. And Da-Eun, after reviewing the information, made another decision. She broadcast it to every species in Council space. The transmission was simple and devastating. It showed evidence that the Council had imprisoned not just the silence, but dozens of other species and entities throughout history. Any civilization that grew too powerful, too independent, too unwilling to submit to Council authority simply disappeared. Sometimes they were destroyed. Sometimes they were imprisoned like the silence. Sometimes they were simply erased from history. The Council called it maintaining galactic stability. The silence called it tyranny. The transmission spread like fire across Council space. Young species, the ones who had not yet fully integrated into the Council system, were shocked. Some did not believe it, but others began asking questions, demanding access to historical records, wanting to know what else the Council had hidden. Elder Vosrath watched as his civilization began to crack apart. Protests erupted on Council member worlds. Ships refused orders. Some species quietly contacted human representatives, expressing sympathy but afraid to openly rebel. "This is what you wanted, is it not?" Councillor Matef said bitterly. "Destroy the Council. Burn down everything we built. Create chaos." "No," Jiwoo replied. She had been released from detention after several Council members demanded it, afraid of how it would look to imprison ambassadors during such unstable times. "We wanted truth. The chaos is your own fault. You built your peace on lies and fear. Did you really think it would last forever?" The Council fleet reached the border of human space. Admiral Young-ho watched them arrive, his ships ready. Behind the human defensive line, the silence waited, a massive presence that defied description. A message came from the Council flagship. Elder Vosrath himself spoke. "Admiral Young-ho, humanity has exactly one opportunity to avoid total destruction. Surrender the silence. Return it to containment. Submit to Council judgment for your crimes. If you comply, your species will be allowed to survive, though you will never be permitted to leave your home system again." Young-ho looked at his officers. They were young, most of them. Born after humanity joined the galactic community, they had grown up believing the Council represented order and peace and safety. Now they knew better. "Transmission response," Young-ho ordered. When the channel opened, he spoke clearly and firmly. "Elder Vosrath, humanity declines your offer. We will not surrender the silence to be tortured again. We will not submit to judgment from a Council built on lies. And we will not be imprisoned in our home system. You claim we released a monster. We say we freed a victim. History will judge which of us was right." "Then you have chosen extinction," Vosrath replied. "No," Young-ho said. "We chose freedom. There's a difference," the Council fleet attacked. Thousands of ships, weapons that could crack planets, shields that could withstand stars' heat. They came in waves, organized and disciplined, the product of millennia of military development. The human fleet met them, smaller, newer, desperate, but equipped with technology the Council had never seen before. Human ships folded space around themselves, appearing and disappearing in patterns that made targeting impossible. Their weapons hit from angles that should not exist. Their shields held against firepower that should have vaporized them. The battle was chaos. Ships exploded. Space itself cracked and reformed, and through it all the silence moved. It did not fight directly. Instead, it did something else. It went into Council space, deep into Council space, and it began freeing everything the Council had imprisoned over the millennia. Ancient beings stirred in their prisons. Species that had been erased from history suddenly reappeared. Entities that should not exist, kept in dimensional pockets for thousands of years, were released, and each one of them learned the truth. Learned what the Council had done. Learned that humanity had freed the silence, and the silence was now freeing them. Some were angry. Some were confused. Some were too damaged to understand what was happening. But all of them were grateful, and many of them were very, very powerful. The Council fleet began receiving reports of chaos throughout their territory, not from human attacks, from internal dissolution. As the truth spread and the imprisoned were freed, species began leaving the Council. Young civilizations, tired of being controlled, declared independence. Older species, disgusted by what they learned, cut ties with the Council government. Admiral Young-ho watched the battle shift. The Council fleet was not retreating, but it was becoming disorganized. Ships were receiving orders to return home to deal with crises in their own territories. Captains were questioning their orders, unsure if they were fighting the right enemy. "Sir," his tactical officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from the Silence." Young Ho nodded. "Put it through." The message was simple, appearing as text on every screen. "I am breaking all their chains just as you broke mine. The galaxy will never be the same. Thank you for starting this." Back on Earth, President Daun addressed humanity through every available channel. Her message was broadcast to every human in every system. The Council called the Silence a monster. They said we released something terrible. But we did not release a monster. We released the truth. And yes, the truth is destroying their peace. But it was a peace built on chains, on lies, on fear. We will face whatever consequences come from this. But we will face them as free people, not as subjects to a council that rules through deception. The war continued for 3 more years. Not a single grand battle, but thousands of smaller conflicts, political upheavals, and species-wide debates about what the galaxy should become. The council did not fall in a day. It crumbled slowly, piece by piece, as truth and freedom spread like cracks through ancient stone. 3 years after the war began, Lieutenant Hyunwoo stood in what used to be the council chamber. The massive ring station still orbited the neutron star, but everything was different now. The carefully organized seating areas were empty. The grand displays were dark. The symbol of the Galactic Council, once projected proudly in the center of the chamber, was gone. He was here as a diplomat now, not a soldier. The fighting had stopped 6 months ago, not because anyone won, but because there was nothing left to fight for. The council had dissolved, not destroyed in battle, but broken apart by internal collapse as truth spread, and species chose independence over submission. "Strange to see it empty," Ambassador Jiwoo said, walking up beside him. She looked older now, tired from 3 years of constant negotiation and crisis management. "I remember when this place represented everything humanity wanted to achieve. A place among the stars, recognition, belonging." "And now?" Hyunwoo asked. "Now I realize we were asking to join the wrong thing," Jiwoo replied. "The council was never about cooperation. It was about control. We just could not see it." Around the galaxy, representatives from dozens of species were trying to figure out what came next. Some wanted to recreate the council, but with new rules, new transparency, new respect for independence. Others wanted no central authority at all. Everyone was arguing about the future, but the arguing was free, open, honest. That was different. Dr. Sung-min sat in his laboratory on Earth, surrounded by equipment that monitored his condition. He was still changing. The exposure to the Silence had left permanent marks on him. He could perceive dimensions that other humans could not see. His mind processed information in ways that frightened even him sometimes, but he could also still communicate with the Silence. And recently those communications had changed in tone. "It's preparing to leave," Sung-min told the researchers who studied him. "The Silence is getting ready to depart the galaxy." "Leave?" one researcher asked. "Why?" "It finally has its freedom." Sung-min smiled sadly. "Because freedom means choosing to go, not choosing to stay. The Silence never wanted to rule or remain. It only wanted to break the cycle, to free those who were imprisoned, to share truth instead of controlling it. And now that work is done." Engineer Bora was working in the orbital shipyards when she discovered something remarkable: the technologies. The Silence had shared with humanity had opened up entirely new fields of research. Humans were now building vessels that could travel through dimensions, not just through normal space. She brought her findings to Admiral Young Ho, who was still coordinating the defense fleet, though there was little left to defend against. "We can go anywhere now," Bora explained, showing him the calculations. "The dimensional drives don't just move us faster. They let us access parts of the universe that were impossible to reach before. We're not limited to our local region anymore." Young Ho studied the data. "So humanity's next chapter is exploration?" "Why not?" Bora replied. "We spent 3 years fighting. Maybe it's time to discover instead." The formal message arrived through every available channel. The Silence was broadcasting its departure announcement to every species in the galaxy. President Daun read it aloud during an address to Earth. "I am leaving your galaxy now. I have stayed to break chains and share truth. That work is complete. There are other places in the universe where beings are trapped, where species are controlled through fear and lies. I will go to them as well. Some of the freed entities have chosen to come with me. Others remain here to rebuild. The choice is theirs, as all choices should be. To humanity I say this: thank you. Not for freeing me, though I am grateful for that. Thank you for proving that compassion and curiosity can exist together, that a species can be strong and kind, intelligent and moral. Your people saw injustice and chose to act, even when it would have been easier and safer to obey. Guard that quality well. It is rarer than you know. 3 days later, the silence began to move. Slowly at first, then faster, accelerating beyond the galaxy's edge. Some of the freed entities went with it. Beings of pure energy, species that existed partially out of normal space. Consciousnesses that had been imprisoned for so long, they barely remembered what freedom felt like. They departed quietly, without ceremony or grand announcements. They simply left, heading toward the vast darkness between galaxies. On Earth, in the rebuilt council headquarters that now served as a meeting place for independent species, Lieutenant Hyun-woo helped draft the new agreements. There would be no single council anymore. Instead, there would be alliances, partnerships, trade agreements. Species would cooperate because they chose to, not because they feared the consequences of refusal. Will it work? A young diplomat asked him. This new system? Without central authority, won't there be chaos? Hyun-woo thought about the question carefully. Maybe. Probably, but that's the price of freedom. Order through fear and lies is easier than cooperation through trust. But only one of them is worth having. Ambassador Ji-woo stood before representatives from 17 different species, all of them young civilizations that had been controlled by the Council for centuries. They wanted to form a new alliance, one based on mutual defense and shared knowledge. We want humanity to lead this alliance, their spokesperson said. You freed the silence. You stood up to the Council when no one else would. You showed us that resistance is possible. Ji-woo shook her head. No, humanity will not lead. That's how the old Council started, with one species claiming authority over others. This alliance will have no single leader. He will make decisions together or not at all. But we need guidance, the spokesperson protested. We need someone who knows what they're doing. Then learn together, Ji-woo replied firmly. Make mistakes together. Grow together. That's the only way this will work. 20 years after the silence departed, Captain Hana stood on the bridge of the Promise Keeper, a vessel designed for long-range dimensional exploration. She was old now, her hair gray, her face lined with years of service. But her eyes were still sharp, still curious. Beside her, Lieutenant Hyun-woo's daughter, now a commander herself, checked the ship's systems. All departments report ready, Captain. We can depart when you give the word. Their mission was simple and terrifying. Travel beyond the galaxy, following the silence's path, seeking other imprisoned beings, other suppressed truths. Earth Command had approved it, though many thought it was foolish. Why risk going out there when there was still so much to rebuild here? But that was not how humans worked. It never had been. One message came through before we left, the communications officer reported. It's strange, Captain. It's encrypted with patterns we've never seen before. But when we decoded it, it was in plain English. What does it say? Hana asked. The officer read it aloud. Thank you. Not for freeing me, but for proving that compassion and curiosity can exist together. Guard it well, and if you find others who are trapped, remember, kindness is not weakness. Mercy is not foolishness. You were right to free me. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. There was no signature, but everyone knew who sent it. Hana smiled. Acknowledge receipt and confirm we understand. Then take us out. Let's see what's beyond the edge. Back on Earth, President Da-yoon gave one final speech about the events that had changed everything. She was retiring, passing leadership to the next generation, but she wanted to leave them with clear words about what had happened and why. 3 years ago, the Galactic Council warned us about the silence. They told us it was a monster that would destroy everything. They threatened us with extinction if we did not obey, and we did not obey. Some people even now say we were wrong, that we should have listened, that we released something terrible and caused chaos that killed billions. To those people I say this: we did not release a monster. We released the truth. And yes, the truth destroyed their peace, but it was a peace built on chains, on lies, on the suffering of countless beings imprisoned to maintain control. The council said the silence was dangerous. They were right. But not because it destroyed, because it freed. And freedom is always dangerous to those who rule through fear. We would do it again. Every human involved in that decision would make the same choice. Because that is what defines us. We cannot see injustice and look away. We cannot accept that suffering is necessary for stability. We cannot obey when obedience means betraying our conscience. They warned us about the silence. They should have warned themselves about us. The Promise Keeper crossed beyond the galaxy's edge, its dimensional drives carrying it into the vast dark between spiral arms. Other human ships followed. Exploration vessels crewed by people who could not resist asking what was out there. The galaxy they left behind was chaotic, rebuilding, arguing about what came next. It was messy and uncertain and free. Different species were forming new alliances, building new systems of cooperation, making mistakes and learning from them. The council was gone. The old order was broken, and in its place something new was growing, something that had never existed before in galactic history. Real cooperation between truly independent species. Humanity watched from their home system, always ready, always wary. Their ships patrolled the borders. Their scientists continued studying the technologies the silence had shared. They had learned a hard,